Last week, Pastor Tally preached on the Prodigal Son, and that story really hits home for me. So if it's okay, I'm going to skip the middle song. Yeah, you guys can sit down for this. Thanks. And just share a little bit of my testimony. My mom and dad are here tonight. They had two sons, me and my brother Bobby. And my older brother Bobby, he's always been the good son. And he got married young. He married a woman with 3 kids, adopted them, became a pastor of the church that my dad used to pastor. And I said, Bobby, you're crazy. So I turned 18, and I joined the National Guard, and I went off to college. And I did whatever I wanted. And I lived for myself for a really long time. Luke chapter 15, the prodigal son, verse 13, says, not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, and he set off for the distant country. And there he squandered his wealth in wild living. Verse 14, after he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one would give him anything. I'll never forget that feeling, because in my darkest hour of need, when I turned to the people that I thought were my friends, and my colleagues and my acquaintances, they all abandoned me. And I felt so much guilt and shame that the devil had my life in his hands. And in that moment, at my all-time low, and when I had nobody left to turn to, Jesus told me that it was time to come home. And I said, Jesus, I can't come to you now. You don't want me anymore. After everything that I've done, and I've drug your name through the mud, and I've spat in your face 1,000 times, God. The holiest of kings. The one who spoke and created the earth. He doesn't need me. He doesn't want me. Jesus said none of that mattered now. He said that you're my son, and I love you with all my heart. And he told me that my sins were forgiven and that I was free. I said, no. It can't be that easy. There has to be a consequence. Punish me, God, because I deserve it. Not to change stories, but I think this ties in really nicely. My dad named me Stephen after Stephen in the Bible. Stephen was the first Christian in recorded history to die for his faith. The reason that I love this story in particular is not because of Stephen, but because Paul was there. Paul was there, and he helped murder Stephen. Paul went on to become an apostle, a disciple, one of Jesus' best 12 friends. He wrote most of the New Testament, and he led countless lives to Christ. So if God could forgive the prodigal son for squandering his father's wealth, and if God could forgive Paul for murdering Christians, then God could forgive me too for my trespasses, and he could forgive you for yours. He knows the darkest part of your soul, and he loves you the same. I met Lisa almost 10 years ago, and in the beginning of our relationship, we had a pretty hard time. That was mostly my fault. Lisa, I'm so sorry for how I treated you and how selfish I was. And Cadence and Emma, I'm glad you guys are here. because I hope that you never have to experience the loneliness that I felt during that time. Please always remember that you're never too far gone for God, no matter what you've done. Here we are almost 10 years later, getting ready to have our fourth baby. And that's the difference between mercy and grace, because most of us could understand mercy, right? Verse 18, the prodigal son comes home, says, Father, I have sinned against you, heaven, and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. Most of us could get on board with that. Yeah. You've spoiled all the money that I've had on whatever you wanted. You can come home and you can work for me for the rest of your life. But grace goes in one ear and out the other. Verse 20. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The father said to his servants, Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his fingers and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. My brother's not like this at all, but when his brother questioned his father's decision, his father doubled down. He said, verse 31, You're always with me and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and now he's found. That's grace.